We're going to call the meeting to order. 5:30 is the Finance Committee meeting. And we have myself, Amy Fiden, Paul Benjamin, Alexi Levine, and Dylan Bartman. Hopefully Valerie Hood will be joining us later. So we will wait for, well, we're not going to wait, but hopefully she'll join in. So tonight we've already reviewed all the budgets for everyone. So now we're going to go ahead and try to give our recommendation for this budget. So I'm not sure. I know one of the reasons why we put this off tonight was because of the capital. They kind of wanted to see where capital was going to. I'm not sure if you got my minutes or you got a chance to look at them. I can briefly just mention what we did in capital. So we unfortunately don't have a lot of room in capital because of we spent a lot of it last town meeting, so we didn't have a ton to spend. So, but we did have some items that we really felt were important that the departments brought forth to us that were important. A few items, I think 4 small items for the school, carpeting, technology stuff for the school, a couple items for sewer. There was 3 items that water had brought forth, and then the rest were just more highway. The 2 big items that really were up for discussion was a truck for about 300,000, and then 400,000. And then the payloader too. That was, I think it was 300,000, right? So, and the issue was on those 2 items, we talked about, we didn't really feel, there was a lot of us felt like it was, we didn't have the money to know where to pay for it, but we felt they were important. Just that Scott did a great job. I mean, I'm really impressed with his performance over at DPW. I think he's doing a great job. I don't think he asks for more than what he needs. I think he really needs it. The payloader was in 1984, I think he said. So it's, I mean, that he's replacing. So it's pretty old. Anyways, so we said, well, what we're going to do is we're going to try to ask Finance Committee to increase the line item of debt and interest payment that we do in the operating budget and pay it through the debt exclusion. No, sorry, pay it through the levy. Pay it through the levy. We originally put it in for debt exclusion, but we don't think it's gonna pass. We think that it's gonna just be like, maybe it passes town meeting, and then we go to the ballot, and then it goes down and it gets voted out, and then we're in the same spot and we're talking about this next time. That's what the trend has been. So we thought they were important enough that we should request to see if we could get them to pay it out of the levy. So that would mean we'd have to increase that line item. Also, we talked about we need to start getting more money into the capital so that we can pay for these capital items. So they did talk about moving. We originally capital was paid for by the meals and rooms tax, but then we needed it for the budget. So we haven't done that in a long time. So the newest thing is because cannabis is new, they talked about moving that. It's a little too late for this year. So we're looking to do that hopefully next fiscal year. How am I doing, Linda?
That's good. I think that we've got some planning to do for fall, but we are where we are right now for spring.
All right. So right now we have the other 3 items that we did talk about. I mean, even though we might move some like the canvas over, we are having a few items in our operating budget that are capital items, such as the cruiser. That's a capital item. It's a lease, so that's why it's in there, but it is a capital item. We could move that over and pay for that. You know, if we lose the revenues from cannabis, we would also be losing, we would move over the capital items such as the cruiser and the fire equipment. Even it's just a 5-year term, but it's still a capital item, so we could pay for that. We also talked about leasing other, like the payloader. Is that a good idea? Leasing it. We felt like that Linda could probably get a better rate than the leasing agreement, probably. So that's why we went this way. So anyways, anybody have any questions? No?
No, none. The notes were good for the meeting minutes.
Okay, so
I just wondered, is the truck old enough to get CPA historic restoration money? You know,
a truck.
It's historical.
I mean, it's almost there at antique. You know, it's 25 years you get antique. So I just wondered, can we look into that? You know. No, I think it's good. You know, one thing I'd like to see us do for capital is I would like us to do an inventory of our vehicles and capital. You know, like a 5-year plan of, you know, we have so many vehicles, they're this old, they have this mileage, they should be replaced. We should be, you know, let the electorate know ahead of time that, you know, this is when these things are going to wear out, or when we ought to be planning that, you know, in 3 years we're going to need to replace another truck. And, you know, so that because the way it comes, again, Susan, you got your hand up there? Or?
Yeah, I was going to say, I have a complete vehicle schedule for insurance purposes. And so, I mean, I could always forward that along to you.
Yeah, I just wondered if it's something we shouldn't give out at town meeting. I just think people have to understand how much we have that down the road we have to take care of. We do maintenance, but there's a point where useful life is over. Because I've been in the meetings where somebody comes in, you know, we need a truck and it's, you know, dozens of years old. And, you know, somebody else says, well, I've got one on my farm and I think you can get more out of it. Or, you know, the people go back and forth with this stuff. I think
But
we
we'll
have to be
kill
fair.
ourselves with maintenance.
Right. And I think
So-
we need to make sure that people understand this is what a town with this type of, you know, what we have, you know, and including the big items like our, you know, fire department, you know, if the pumpers have if we're able to get by because of the way they're used, you know, they can run 10 years, they can run 15 years or whatever, or if it's 6 years, people should understand that.
So Paul, we actually met, Linda and I met with Scott today because Linda and I have been talking a lot about it. You've had 5-year, 10-year plans, but with COVID and looking back, it kind of halted. So we are actually decided, when Scott took a look at everything today, he said, none of this is relevant anymore. So we are in the process of starting exactly
fine.
what you're talking
Yeah.
about. So
Yeah, I just think it'd be good. I think we'd get less resistance when we come forward with these things if we have to do it as an override, you know, as a debt exclusion rather. If it has to be done that way, at least people know it's coming, and they also know what the plan is long term for these things.
yeah,
how long we
I don't
plan.
think I don't think it'll be ready for this town meeting,
Fine.
but absolutely for the fall, we will have it.
I think that's
And we
great.
also have to take into consideration the green community initiatives that have to be done for,
Yes.
I forwarded along our vehicle schedules to those folks. So
Right.
we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. What did Kermit say? That it's not easy being green, was it?
It's true.
Or cheap.
Yeah, it's not cheap either.
No, it's really expensive. So there you go.
All right, so now that we know where the capital is, I guess, I think what we probably could do is just go ahead and we've listened to everybody, without going through each line item. I'd just like to hear a little bit from everybody, what their thoughts are, where they are at, what, you know, any input that you want to put in. I'll give my 2 cents, and then I'd like everybody else to give their 2 cents, and then we can just try to get it balanced. Okay. I do have some worries, and my worries are more of for a little bit. I want to be somewhat conservative for next year. Right now, I think that the budget is really good. I can't really pick apart anything. I don't feel like some of these departments, I think they put together a really, really good budget this year. I do see that we need to be competitive with all our departments. And I see that that's going to be coming up with the, with all the union negotiations, and I would expect that something to happen. So without knowing that, that's an unknown number. And so with that, I also really, really would like to see, I don't remember the last time I saw the town hall people get step increases. I remember a lot of COLAs go through, but I don't ever remember, I remember a couple times when there was requests for steps, but I don't remember anybody ever getting them. So maybe it's my memory, but I just feel like a lot of people at the town hall haven't gotten like steps. So I don't want to, I want us to look at that for possibly the fall or whatever, because I don't want, just because union people are getting increases, that doesn't mean the non-union people shouldn't be getting their increases too. It's only encouraging more unions. So I really think that's something we need to look at. So with some of these unknowns, and with us knowing that we're balancing this budget with about 400,000 ARPA money, I think, and about maybe the 300,000 to 400,000 of free cash. So that's what we're using to balance this budget. I pretty much agree with everything. There's only 2 items here that I would ask that possibly that we hold off on. Not that they're not great items or great goals, but there are some things that I think we can hold back on. So there's 3 things I think, in my opinion, that maybe if we hold back just a little bit. One being the in police, if we could hold back just a little bit on the extra the extra people to get the accreditation. I think it's a great goal, a great project, but if we could, I don't think it's going to hurt us if we hold off on that just a little bit. Also the ambulance, the new hire, we don't even have the ambulance ready to go yet. So if we hold off on that, I think it's a good goal, but I would like to see us hold back. And the third thing is, the OPEB. I think we need to keep going with the OPEB, but maybe it's something we can look at how much to go with. If, maybe we don't need to do the full amount. So those are just my 2 cents. So I'm hoping that I can have everybody else's 2 cents now too. Thanks.
Want me to go next? Yeah, I was not at the police and fire presentation, but I have read through. I agree with Amy, if we can make those concessions, if they can make those concessions this year, that I think that would be helpful. I'm also concerned that even with the budget that we have, that with inflation already being tagged at 8-9%, we don't know where it's going to go the rest of the year. We may have issues with some of the supplies, some of our expenses that we just can't see right now going up, so that if anything we can do right now to hold back a little bit would be, I think, a prudent idea. So I think what Amy's mentioned works. I would love us to be able to fund OPEB, just pay the money and be done in one fell swoop. Maybe we need a lottery ticket for that. But I know that we have to do this over a period of time. It's just not possible. And if we can do this in a smaller lift in getting back to the set goal, which is like was that about 270 or something, I think is what we're trying to get back to, 290? Yeah, somewhere in that area. Yeah, 270. If we could make $100,000 improvement from last year to this year, and hold back the other just as a safety valve for us, I think that would be a good idea. And I'm hoping that it won't affect our bond rating. I think we should know that before we make that decision, though, because if you affect the bond rating, it could affect lending, and so we're going to get, it could be a false economy, or we could lose some of it anyway. Were you able to find out any more on that, Linda?
Not until you just said it now. I've talked to David Eisenthal twice, and I am so sorry. I actually am I am scheduled to talk with him again tomorrow.
Okay.
But I have not, I guess I'm sorry, I just don't have an
Yeah,
answer.
okay, it's all right. I mean, just, I think that would be helpful, and then we should, we need to, ultimately, we need to commit to get back to that. I think it's important that we make a stand on that, and, we're one of a few communities doing it, and I'm hoping that down the road, whenever the state really faces this problem for all these communities, that the ones that did go forward are gonna get some benefit for having, made it part of their ongoing program. That's about all I got.
Yeah, I agree with you, Paul. It would be nice to get OPED funded, but working our way up to it is a good idea. Regarding police, unfortunately, I got stuck at work, so I don't have my notes from home from when we met with Chief Mason. Maybe you could help me out, Carolyn, with some of this, but the accreditation, part of hiring on for that person was to get, I wish I had my notes, I wrote all this down, but doing that, hiring on that person, getting to that accreditation was something that he was going to be pushed towards doing anyway.
He has to.
He has to do it.
Mhm.
And so, and then on top of it, when I asked him at the end, I was like, it sounds like you've taken steps back over the last couple of years. Where is your actual staffing needs at? Because he was metered in what his requests were. And he was saying an additional 2 to 3 staff on top of what he was requesting for additional payroll. So he's already kind of held back from going all the way with his asks. And I think he does it in a thoughtful way. And with him losing staff to other towns just because we aren't as competitive, I just don't want to get him into a position where we start to slide back at a quick rate because it's less attractive to work here. He said everyone loves to work for Hadley. They love the community. And every time they leave, it's never because they had an issue with the chief or issue with the town. It was always about money and staffing. So I would want to keep that budget the same, especially since Chief Mason has put a lot of thought into this and helped out in the past 2 years with our COVID budgets. That's all I have.
I didn't know if did you want me to add anything, Dylan?
Yeah,
Just
Yeah.
that you are correct. Accreditation is part of the police reform bill. And in fact, I was able to go to a municipal conference on Saturday, and the impact on small town is astronomical about the amount of work that they have to do administratively just with reporting. Is about 180 reports that they have to address. And so yeah, you did remember correctly.
one of the things that stands out, seared into my brain, I don't even have to look at my notes for this, but Mike, Chief Mason was saying, in a town of 5,000, there's 100,000 unique people going down Route 9 every day. And we just have to remember that we do have a very unique situation. We are a small town, but then we have some infrastructure that is a little bit larger. And there's unique needs and pushes and strains on both fire and police. Alexi, I think you're talking, you're on mute though.
I agree with what everyone said, especially around the safety issues, the fire and police. We have to remember that although we have a greater burden than our population because of our unique situation, we also get paid for that, all the taxes and inspection fees. So it's not actually an extra burden. It's actually probably generating more money for us. We have the lowest taxes in the whole valley, it seems. So the whole situation where people are getting trained here and that the department likes them and praises them, and then they have to leave because we don't pay enough. That's just we have to fix that situation. We've got to get the wages and reimbursement up for those people, for all of our employees. What kind of town do we want to be?
Okay, Valerie, did you want to are you able to hear us or talk?
I am driving and I only just added, I only just got here, but I heard Dylan's comments and I heard the last of Paul's comments and I heard Alexi's comments. And so I don't know exactly what the question is, except that I think everybody knows what my views are about funding our police and fire departments. Now, having said that, I want to also say that I understand that this is a challenge. We have, only so large a pie. And I feel sorry because I know that Amy is she's always the one saying, look, I would like to do all these things too, but this is the amount of money we have. How are we going to use it responsibly? What's the most responsible way to use our funds? And I so appreciate that about Amy. And I feel very, very strongly that we need to give our police and firefighters what they need to be safe and to be current in our town. I myself have lived in a town where there were bad cops, and it's not a good thing. We want to give Chief Mason what he needs to have the outstanding kind of force that we want to continue to have in this town.
Thank you, Valerie.
I did think Amy's point, though, about how much ARPA funds are using to balance the budget is something we should consider. And I was wondering if maybe, Linda, you could hit on it. Looking at the local receipts in the last email you sent seemed to be looking like it's trending in the right way. I do what Amy said earlier about getting out maybe a little bit ahead of ourselves on funding everything and then having ARPA. I don't know if I'm putting words in your mouth, Amy, but I think that's what you were meaning to say. If we're still balancing the budget with these special funds, what happens next year when we go to look at this?
Right.
And if Linda, you could speak to local receipts and
Right, because there's been a little bit of a shift. I'm trying to go back and forth with the budget book and see what's changed. The budget's gone up, and so have the revenues. We have amazingly landed about in the same place. I don't know how that happened. Some of that was even trade-offs, like the weights and measures and the boat excise. So it looks like at this point we have an $810,000 gap between revenues and the expenditures. I know there was a notice out today, and maybe Susan or Dan saw it. I thought, oh, I've got to track that down, and then I completely blanked on that too. I just ended up with an afternoon full, but we did get the next set of cherry sheets. Did either of you look at them?
I did, and actually Dan probably perused them closer than I did.
He did.
But Dylan, to kind of alleviate your concerns about how much ARPA we're using. These are ARPA replacement funds for funds we lost as far as excise taxes and, for the hotels, the meals and everything else. So I don't think we've used more ARPA funds, replacement funds, than we would have gotten revenues for, right, Linda?
Right, and it should be swinging in the same direction. We should be looking for a smaller gap next year, even given the revenue trend. So, because our gap last year was about 250,000 higher than it is this year. We used 580,000 in revenue for FY22. We're only using 400,000. I'm sort of thinking we might have to go to 450 depending on what the other needs are with free cash and if there are any other adjustments in the budget. So in my mind, I have what we might be doing up to 450. Does that leave a $450,000 hole going into the next year? I mean, that not
There'll be a
necessarily.
dent.
Not
There will be a
necessarily.
dent, but
Yeah.
not the whole thing.
We'll catch up somewhat, but there are so many other factors in play. I mean, are we going to direct the cannabis in a certain direction? Are we going to be getting twice as much in cannabis next year? Or is that going to be not until the following year? Are you going to add to the, we're going to add some more money in for the levy, borrowing within the levy? Is that going to be another $25,000, $50,000? So there's a number of things that impact it. I'm not going to say it's not a risk, but we're trending in the right direction so far. And I guess the biggest thing that I am encouraged by is that we have not, that we are balancing it with cash that we have as opposed to free cash that we're hoping we'll have certified for July 1. So maybe that's the equivalent of next year's, if something really goes wrong again, where is our safety fund? Maybe it's the fact that we'll have that extra year's worth of certified free cash going into next year. And if we need a second fund, we could be anticipating the next year's budget. I don't know. It's very similar to what we were going through in capital last night, Amy, that, gee, wouldn't it make sense to cut this back? But we really can't. In some ways, there's some things that we just have to do and hope that this is going to work out. I don't mean not to sound optimistic. I am optimistic, but it is going in the right direction. But
I'm optimistic that it's going in the right direction, and I'm pretty positive of how we're moving along. But in this budget right here, except for the fire, there is really not much. There's only a COLA in here. That's it. So
we don't have budget negotiations in there, or we don't have union negotiations in there yet.
no, we don't have anything in there. And we're all discussing how important it is right now and it's not, like I said, just police. It's important. How are we going to handle that? Do you have ideas on how you're going to handle that when that comes up?
When what comes up, Amy?
For next year's budget, if we're going to start doing increases, like to make us competitive in the marketplace.
Yeah, so in fact, Linda and I were talking about that today and lots of other times because we're in negotiations. I am, as we have discussions, we're looking at impact, but typically my understanding is in Hadley, when you are in a negotiating year, so we do all of them in the same year, fall town meeting is when you address whatever happens coming out of negotiations. So I have numbers that we're working with, but I can't give you definite numbers, obviously, but we are aware that it would have to get addressed at town meeting, whether it's at fall town meeting, whether it's ARPA or whether it's free cash. But that is historically what Hadley has done, is my understanding, correct? Linda?
that we have, which part?
Addressed.
Oh, yes, yeah, we address at the fall town meeting, yes.
Yeah.
We'll have to come, we'll have to come back in the fall. To add in, that is historically what it's been. And I know Carolyn mentioned how other budgets, other towns, sometimes they find a place to put the extra money and then they move it around later. Would you say there's a line item for, I don't know, kind of, if once.
It's something for
pool?
the finance.
A pool, you said?
A salary pool.
A
That
salary
you would
pool.
pass at the annual town meeting in anticipation of changes
Right,
with
but
salary.
everybody knows what's in that pool, though, unless you hide it somewhere, but we're not doing that.
That's kind of a scary thing.
It's not just for negotiations. Salary pools can, if there's a settlement, if there is, you need some turnover, so you need some duplicating when you're hiring somebody new and someone stays on. So it's not just for anticipated negotiation results, but yes, that is an option that you guys could look at in the next couple of years. But that would be at annual town meeting.
I think the bigger concern here would be for where we will be with free cash in FY24. Unless we do something. So I think FY23 will be good, but.
Right.
And we were focusing, trying to keep balancing. I know that what we really wanted to do is try to keep what we use for free cash down to like closer to 75,000 instead of, did I have a wrong number?
Well, no,
No, that
you
was
had
it.
the
It was
right
70
number. I
it was
never agreed
70,000.
with that method, but that's okay.
I actually wanted to address the ambulance is another area where once we get that up and rolling, it should start to cover itself. And so that's another source of revenue, not for the entire budget, but it would be an expense item that would get backed right out of the budget. So we're not going to see that in the first year. So that's actually, I hope that would be a big help to our budget for 24.
You'll be really surprised at what that generates in first year. Carolyn, you saw it in Wilbraham, didn't you?
Yep,
Giant. I mean, that's
not Wilbraham, East Long Meadow.
East Long Meadow. Okay. But honestly, that's something we should move forward with, because that will help alleviate a good amount of public safety.
So that's a $380,000 budget. And they're hoping for a few $100,000. So that going forward, that can
Oh,
only
it's going
go.
it's going to be more than a
Well,
few
I know
hundred.
the budget, but
Yeah.
I mean the budget cost to the town. If we're going
Right.
to start having that covered by it, what the reduction in what we're trying to cover with our free cash and other revenues should be going down.
Yeah,
Yes, the budget will go up,
absolutely.
but it's supposed to hold itself up. And
Here's a couple other, when they mentioned the ambulance, and I thought, okay, that was a great idea. I did vote for it. But it was talked about as that was going to be used right now in the beginning for backup, the second calls. Just if there was an extra, we're still using action, and if we needed an extra. And my understanding was he was using the existing staff. It was just the extra. If we had it available, we weren't going to lose anything, but if we could go and he used his staff, he could bill out at that point. And he was going to try to bill through action. Action was going to try to help him. So I thought it was like baby steps. He was just getting started. He was getting started with his own group, seeing how it was going to go. He's still using action. There's not losing anything. So
Yeah. You're not gonna, it's not gonna be self-sufficient the first year by any means. But
No.
You're right, Amy, it is gonna be baby steps, but it will eventually be a revenue producer significantly. But yeah, we're a few years from that happening, but
okay, so that's not going to be helpful for 24, do you think?
I will just tell you what we experienced in East Long Meadow. The first year totally shocked them, and it ended up by going into the second year being self-sufficient. I just don't want to tell you that that's definitely going to happen here in Hadley, but it is. If you do look at other communities who do have their own ambulance service, it brings in more revenue than the cost.
When I was in insurance, the towns that had their own ambulance, they just booned money in the public safety. So they have to go through the whole certification process. They can't go to an advanced life service before they go to the basic life stuff. So it takes a little bit of time, but ambulances charge a lot of money.
We just want them to make enough so that we don't have to pay the budget out of the rest of our funds.
That would be right.
Yeah. We want $380,000. We may not get it this year, but I would hope that we could see that greatly reduced for the following year. So that's another area. We have a lot of things hanging in air. So, I mean, being conservative is generally something we all agree on, but there are some worthwhile leaps here and some things down the pike and some concerns with certain cuts that make me feel a little more than usual that we can sustain this. Hopefully we can sustain this going forward.
So on, like we said, there is baby steps and it is what makes it that we can't push it to, we were pushing a lot, like even the salaries to fall. On some of these items, can't we push these to fall so we can go through some of the other steps first?
So
Especially
if I, can I address that? I'm going to bring it back to their presentation. Both chiefs, they were very clear that this was not going to make them whole because they understood the budget constraints. They understood where we were at. This was to make them stable. It wasn't to make them whole because we asked them that, what would make it whole? I think Chief Mason would need 3 additional police officers. And I think Mike, I don't remember fire, but it was more than what they were asking. So this is, they're coming to us saying this is the bare minimum that we can survive and it's not enough. So if you can remember their presentations, they were just really clear. I kind of wish they were here right now to be able to kind of answer some of those concerns or what the impact's going to be. But the bottom line was this was not going to make them whole. It was making them stable.
The police was 3, fire, I want to remember, was 2. And yeah, there was some need on dispatch at some point too.
I think the easy one to push off to fall, Amy, is OPEB. Even if we find, in my discussion tomorrow, and I've got a note on it, even if we find that we're cutting it back too much and starting to impact the bond rating, we can fix that in the fall. So putting that expense off until we have more information doesn't hurt anything. That's probably the easy one, and I'm a huge advocate of OPEB, and I want to see that funded too. This has not been a great investment year in OPEB, so I'm not sad not to be investing more money in there right now because investments aren't exactly they haven't exactly been blowing us away this year the way they did the year before. So I'm glad we got our money in when we did, and I hope we can do it again this year. But if you're uncomfortable with the size of the budget and want to get it back somewhat, that's probably the easiest place to make take a stab at putting it at backing off a bit. And then that might make room. Then when they come fall, then we'll have more information. We always have more information in the fall. We'll know what our certified free cash is in July 1. Union negotiations will be over. We'll know whether the ambulance is on the road and whether they're starting to bring any money in. I mean, it'll always be nice to have information ahead, but this is the best we have right now.
And honestly, Linda, the OPEB, we are in great shape compared to most communities in the Commonwealth. Mm-hmm. We had a plan, we stuck to it for most years. Yeah. So you're right. Yeah. Nobody's going to have an issue with us.
Right. And if it turns out we're not in a position or to restore it in the fall, then we're going to sit down and revise the plan. So we have a plan we can stick to going forward, even if it's hit the reset button and we have to come up with a new plan that we're more comfortable sticking with under the circumstances.
And that proposal you just laid out, Linda, would that be a $0 contribution to OPEB or wait just till fall town meeting and then make an amount?
Yeah, you could. I'm trying to look at one thing Amy suggested, or I guess Paul did, 100,000 over last year. So
yeah, I think that's a reasonable move.
Right. So this year you funded it at 66,890. So, and then the amount to get us back where we were, which was 15,000 over the year before. 50,000, I'm sorry. So we were at 16,890, then we went to 66,890. So it would be just over about a 205,000 increase to get us back where we back on the track we had been on before COVID. But if Paul's suggesting 100 over last year, that would make it 166, which would mean a cut right now of 120. In years past, you have cut it right back to zero at annual town meeting and restored, I think, in full in the years that we did that in the fall. 1 year that restoration was out of stabilization. It might make sense if we're starting to see, it's a good market at that time for investing. We might consider that. So we have that as options. So yeah, you can do 0 now, but I really would hate to, you don't want to, you at least want to earmark it and know that that's going to be the first things that you put back. So maybe as you're balancing things, you start with either level or the 100 over. So you're only cutting 120 that you have for your other purposes here.
I would not like to see us do level. I would be fine if there's enough pressure, we could maybe only go 50,000 above last year. But I think 100,000 is reasonable. But we're trying to march towards a goal there, and I hate to see us back off too far.
I agree with that, Paul. I think that there's a larger risk of backsliding in police and fire.
How much money do we need to increase on, will we need to use to increase the debt and interest payments?
Maybe up to 50,000. I mean, we're not going to be borrowing all of that right up front. So those new amounts that are coming out of, I think I figured it was 330,000 was the amount that was coming out of the general fund side, because both of those items, some of it was attributable to water and to sewer. I divide that by 10, basically dealing with the principal, and it'd be about 33,000 a year. And it won't be starting in FY22 because we're borrowing. I mean, yes, it won't be starting in FY23 because we're almost at 23. So by the time we buy it, we will be financing it in 23, possibly even later. Scott said there may be a long wait on one of them. So we would be paying it off the following year. However, knowing that that's coming, I would still suggest doing something additional in that so that we clear up other items and make room for what we know is a big upswing the following year, similar to what we did with the buildings, the town buildings. We did the increase before we borrowed for the buildings so that we could get used to the increase and pay off the old items and make room for them. But so by the time we had the buildings online, we didn't need to increase any further. So,
And what does that do to the tax rate?
Well, they're not debt exclusion, so it wouldn't change it.
yes.
Okay. But it won't reduce it either.
Well, it's interesting, Dan, because there's some things coming off. We usually, in other times, we would be doing those trucks by debt exclusion and they would be replacing the other items coming off debt exclusion. At this point, we have things coming off debt exclusion and we're not replacing them.
Well,
So in time, it's going to come down, maybe in a couple of years.
yeah, it looks like we're spending the same amount on debt exclusions next year that we have for this year.
Yeah,
so
we are.
It looks like, yeah, you're making a little bit more in principal payments because the interest has dropped.
That's right. We're making those payments to keep the payments even and to keep the debt exclusion borrowings going down.
Yeah, as long as that continues, it'll stay the same on the tax rate. It's the net debt exclusion total that gets applied. So if it's still $1,033,000.
Yeah.
It'll stay the same going forward.
But 2 or 3 years out, that's going, if we're not doing more debt exclusion borrowings, it's going to start to drop.
Yeah,
It'll
that'll,
Take a
once
couple years.
more things drop off, it'll begin to drop. But I would assume there'll be some requests going forward in the next couple of years.
When we get
Might
healthy,
pass.
we'll be healthy again next year.
Did you see the capital plan?
Yeah, there's plenty to buy. Does that help? Question?
At first, talking about the capital plan, I kept seeing the mower and I kept thinking, did we do the mower before? And then I bet you it'll come up at town meeting because the mowers come up so many times and then it got pushed off. And then I'm like, did it go on the next one? And then I looked and I'm like, no, it wasn't on the last one. So it is get pushed off. I just keep hearing the word mower lately.
I kept saying, we just bought one. And I looked back and it was like 2012. So, oh well,
About it year after year, lots of times, right?
yeah.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
Where are we?
So we need to figure out how to balance it. I'm looking for someone to. Hi, Val.
I'm sorry, I have a question. And that is, if we did want to propose to the town an increase in the tax rate, what does that process look like? What needs to get done in order to do that?
Who's
I-
answering? You got to put a budget. Budget's
Jump
got
in. I've never, it's been decades since Hadley attempted a budget override. Is that what you're talking about, a budget override?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So it does have to, I believe it has to be at town meeting and on a ballot. Sure.
Yes.
And it's too late for spring. It could be part of what is proposed for fall. And I think it needs 2/3 at town meeting, and we need to get a majority at the ballot. Does that sound right?
I think it's only half at
Half
town
even at
meeting.
town meeting? Okay, because it's not
Not a borrowing, it's only
yeah, not a
half.
borrowing. Okay.
Is this
And I-
something that we should consider?
I don't think it's smart to do it right now because of where gas and supply issues and that type of thing. I don't think it would pass now.
Oh.
That's just my opinion. I don't think it would pass now. I think if we propose perhaps in the fall, if things improve, if we kind of did this as a public safety override, I think people would support it fully.
Okay,
That's my opinion.
We'd have to find out, look up and see how soon something like that would have to get rolling. It's something finance committee should meet with select board. And I say that having been on finance committee, that they're the politicians. And I mean, you support the budget that includes it, but we used to have the politicians go out ahead on that.
well, I was in Boston today, and I was speaking with a friend of mine who's very active in her town, Canton, Massachusetts, and she said it took 3 times, to finally get a budget override. And I was thinking, well, then maybe we ought to get going on that. Maybe we ought to do that, start that process sooner rather than later.
I think one thing to our advantage is that rather than throw it out and fail in the spring, we've been actively talking about what these needs are. So that we're getting this information out about the police and the fire and we're getting it talked about. And Valerie, you have certainly assisted in that area.
Yeah.
And I think the chiefs are doing their part too and not holding back. Being more informative and more forthcoming. Not that they weren't forthcoming, but they don't, most department heads are trained not to ask for more than they absolutely need. And now they're just at a point where they need a lot more than they should have to need at this point, unfortunately.
Right, because for all these years they've been holding back, and now we're at a place where we need to catch up and get ahead.
Yeah. So it might take a couple more rounds, but I really encourage you to meet with select board about it. I don't know, Carolyn, does that sound fair?
I think you need to have the select board's, input for sure, especially for any type of success. And I think we'll know more about what negotiations are going to look like, probably by the summertime. So I think that's probably where some of that discussion would start, to really see where we're at and what our needs are. So I think right now we've just got to wait and see what's going to happen with negotiations and what we anticipate for spring, fall town meeting.
Okay. All right. Well, I think it's good to get the conversation started for sure.
I also want to mention, we're gonna you're talking about that, but also taxes will increase if we go back to what we said we would as one tax rate and not a split tax rate. So if that ends up going back, that might affect our taxes as well,
Is that accurate, Dan? I thought we were kind of.
Yeah, it's even if it's split, it's the same. Dan, you can answer that, right?
Well, no, if it's the preliminary numbers that we're looking at, commercial's going up, residential's going up. If we go back to a single rate, which we said we were going to go back to a single rate, and I think we probably should go back to a single rate this year, the increase on residential will be about the same, maybe a little bit more than it was last year. I was surprised that we didn't see a large increase of, we saw virtually no one come in with residential properties this year and file for abatements. I think we had one. And that was a house that was in really bad shape. You're probably looking at 265 to 285 range next year for the average single family house.
That's helpful. Thanks. Okay. Does someone want to make some motions or? No. Paul, Dylan,
Well,
Lexi?
I'm not sure what the motion is at this point, because do we have a deficit, or are we balanced with the increase? If we agree to the increases in the public safety.
Well, those increases were already in the budget, so they're part
Okay,
of what.
so they're already in the budget.
Yes.
They're in the budget, and we're using, and that's what we're using to balance it. So everything that we see in the budget was used. We're going to have to make a $50,000, sounds like, increase to one, and then a decrease on 50,000 to at least to the OPEB. I mean, that would balance it, that if one's minus and one's plus it. Okay. And then the budget is exactly what was presented to us. That's fine. The only thing is that is a budget without any types of increases at all, except for the COLA, and for fire. Fire has an increase in there, which is great. But other than that, there's no other increases. And we are using a lot of the ARPA money and the free cash to balance it. So.
And that is free cash we already have. We're not waiting for a certification. So it's safe to use at this point.
Yes.
Okay.
Linda, can you throw up your summary sheet that shows
Not
where?
literally.
No, sorry. I didn't mean it that way.
Just making sure.
Sorry.
Sorry.
It's not what I included in the, let's see what's in my.
I'm sorry, that made it very clear to me where we were. That's why I was like.
Right, it's not that far off from the, the budget book. It's not that far off. So where we are right now, let's see, how can I get that?
One thing you might want to consider too, if you look at Linda's general fund year to date for March, our local receipts are at 2.63 for the end of March, and we only budgeted 2.69 for the year. We still have 3 months left of motor vehicle excise. I think there's still a hotel, motel, meals tax, and marijuana excise tax coming in. We're going to have a substantial amount of free cash.
We don't have the UMass payment in either.
and the UMass payment.
Yeah,
So we could be looking at page 3 receipts kicking in $900,000 towards free cash, depending on how
excise
the
alone is like 260 that's still coming, so.
Yeah, it'll take me a minute, but I can get the entire budget over there. Because what I have ready to show is the budget, the one that I get sent to finance committee, because the other one's so large, but.
I want you to know Linda's working.
I'm
on
sorry,
three
Linda, it's
screens
just,
right now.
it
3
really
screens.
honestly brings it right into view for everybody.
Okay, talk amongst yourselves.
That's an amazing free cash picture. Thanks, Dan. That's really hopeful.
And that number doesn't include any departmental returns or any rollbacks from articles. So it could be even larger than it was this year.
I see the problem. So are those the only two things that we're talking about making changes in, is OPEB and the debt and interest?
Well, that's definitely one that is something that we have to do. Yeah, I mean, you have to make that we'll have to make that adjustment, I think. And I think everybody's in agreement with that. So I guess the only other thing is, I still have, I'm sorry, but and everybody has their own thoughts, and I appreciate everybody's, but it's just my personal thoughts. I'm still not for having the new positions. I'm for taking care of what we have right now and take the focus on our existing before we start adding extra. I'm for the police, I'm for the fire, I'm for everything. It's just I rather take it in slower steps, and before we rather take care of our existing before we add new. So that's just my opinion. And we could start to put our votes in and start to do that, but I think we do need to make the adjustment for that one, that OPEB and the debt and interest, and then we can just finish by voting and then call it a night, I guess.
I think adding the role is also helping the existing. Chief Mason is saying he needs bodies, he needs people. I know we'll work on salaries for them at some point, but we need staff.
Well, I guess I'm a little confused. I just want to clarify. We had some attrition in the department, correct? So I'm sorry I missed that meeting, but I had a medical thing. Sorry about the ship's bells too.
Yeah, we lost 2 or 3.
We lost 3 people.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking, Amy, when you say
After we had spent a lot of money training 2 of them.
I understand it. I understand it. So we need to make some adjustment in our pay scales to be competitive. I think, is everybody in agreement on that?
Yes.
Yes.
We're not, I mean, it has to happen. You know, I mean, it's a real world right now with the inflationary pressure on salaries. I mean, every business I know is out there dealing with this.
Right.
Okay. So that's going to be an issue we're going to be facing, but we can't quantify that right now because negotiations are going to be going on, correct? Is that right?
Right.
Okay. At the same time, sorry about that. I think that's the last one. There's 3 of them. There's a 4th one, but it's in the repair shop. So hopefully we get through this before that. Okay, so the other issue is that we've had attrition of 3 positions. So we need to fill those positions. Amy, you're not talking about not filling those. You're talking about filling the attrition positions that we've lost. Your concern is how many new positions did they want to hire? Because I'm sorry, I'm not up on that. They want an ambulance person?
It was 1, right?
For
I
police
think-
or fire?
Police.
I
So-
think it's one, where it's one that they're gonna increase, they're gonna make a police officer, a lieutenant,
Mhm.
and add a new police officer.
Yes.
So it's actually one position, but it's a bigger jump, it's a
Jump,
bigger
yeah.
increase because it's going to be increasing it's also a promotion.
Right.
Yeah.
And how much is all that, how much does that add up to that we need to come up with if we approve that? What's that difference?
From his notes, yeah. And again, and I'm skipping
Without
some
taking-
paragraphs. It looks like it's one. This isn't just the position. He's got 155 here. But that is. Yeah, I don't think that number is addressing that. I don't want to use that number.
See if I can find those papers.
He's actually talking about revenue with the 155, so that is not.
The line item is increasing by $99,000, but that's not all. A part of that is regular. I would say some of it would probably be regular COLA in that, but it's a 99,000. I would have to guess it was probably $1,000 item if I guessed.
Yeah, I just pulled up what Linda sent out the other day. It says it's 99,000 is the increase for wages full-time officers, increasing from 860,000 to 960,000 roughly.
Whoa, I think I finally, is there something up on the screen now?
Well, there is, it's just on your,
We just see your
basically a
file.
menu
You just have to click on the file, Linda.
Oh,
or double click.
I'm seeing it. Sorry.
Do you have two screens in front of you right now? A laptop and a monitor, or just one screen?
I just have, let's see if this one does it.
Here it is. You just found the police budget. Yeah, the police budget that they sent in is $99,180 for wage full-time officers increase. Part-time wage officers, they were doing down 7,500. And then there were COLAs for the administrative, admin, clerical, and also for the chief.
Well, given the hopeful free cash
Yeah.
situation, I would be in favor of adding that one person.
Well, it's one, we should say it's one person and that he's gonna make a lieutenant out of an officer, a regular patrol person, right?
And he's replacing that with a
Right.
patrol officer.
With a
Yeah.
patrol officer, okay.
And that is his baby step. He was saying that he would prefer, or he would like to have 2 to 3 more officers outside of the attrition of the 3.
All right, and then fire. COLA. And the majority of the increase in the fire budget was the radio dispatch repair.
No, a lot of some of the fire was, he was giving, some big increases to 2 of his guys who,
Right.
so they were promotions and increases, probably very well deserved. And,
Right. Right,
So-
but 78,000 of the 100,000 is the radio
Capital.
equipment repair and maintenance.
Yep. That's a 5-year term. I believe it's $100,000 piece of equipment that we
Right.
talked about.
Mhm. All right, well, I have to say that I do feel we have to be very cautious, but Dan has, we're gonna hold you to this, Dan, you know that. You there?
Yeah, I think the free
Fainted.
cash figure we get for July 1 will be rather high.
Okay,
It's the free cash figure we get for July 1 of 23 might be significantly lower.
Right.
so
But
that's.
for this year we'll have a good balance.
So if this is showing, this is where we started the evening with the revenues, the budget, $810,000 gap. It's very similar to in your budget book, page 21, where we had at the time it was $821,000 gap. We've been changes at both sides, but we're back.
Mhm.
Free cash using 406, ARPA 400,000, 810. So I've been playing with this so long. Is this what we wanted? Am I showing what we wanted to see?
Yes, Linda.
Okay.
This is exactly what I
Okay.
think needed to be seen.
Yeah, it was, Excel was having a lot of trouble launching here tonight. I don't know why. It happens when I switch back and forth
Here,
sometimes.
here, 10 houses down as well.
Yeah, okay. Oh, okay. Well, maybe that explains it. It's not always me. That's good. So on this one, I can go to any other sections within the budget. We can actually make the changes direct on here and see what the implications are. Is that what you wanted to do next?
Sure,
Sure.
thank you.
So, and I wasn't listening. Did you, I know you were discussing police and fire. Did you make any change?
No, can you, if we can just make changes on just the, those two
OPEB.
other items, OPEB and the debt line item.
Okay, so I'm going to go to. Okay, here is OPEB. So
Why don't we-
66.
Why don't we just go to 170,000, just round it up.
170,000, are gonna take are you gonna vote or you want to see what happens?
See what happens first, if you would, please. Thank you.
All right, and the debt one? You wanted to increase that one? Did you say 50 on that?
Amy, was
I
50?
think so. I'm,
Short-term no, it's within the levy. We'll make that 296, 290. All right,
Now you just have to push the bottom line number button and see what comes up, right? Do you have a key for that on your keyboard, bottom line?
no, it doesn't, I have to go, I have to swing over to the right tab.
Okay.
She'll get there, Paul. Be
I
I know,
careful.
we should get, can we get IT to do a
Be
dedicated
patient.
button
We
for us?
don't have IT, Paul.
Oh, right, okay, sorry.
Wouldn't you think somebody in IT would come up with an actual budget program that we could use rather than this coming up with our own spreadsheets?
It's got a
but-
shoebox.
Shoebox is
Yeah,
that we
everybody
use.
uses a shoebox at home.
See, I'm sure we have some in the basement here at Town Hall.
Yeah.
Vadar has one. I'm not certain how good it is, though.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know either. Actually, when I was on finance committee, this last time we did try and use Vadar for budgets. You probably remember, Sue, we asked you to all enter your own budgets. That went over like a lead balloon.
Well, it went over like a lead balloon because we only had 2 seats. So if I wanted to enter mine, and at the time Damian Shanley was the interim police chief, he would log on and kick me out.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was not good.
So something in between everyone doing their own, but having it entered in there, what might work. We might want to look into trying that again.
That's
But,
that's
okay.
aggressive. All right.
So anyone, does this seem right? Anyone doing the math in their head? We came down 100 and up 50. Yeah, that's about right.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely works.
now I have this set to, this is just my own formula. I have it set when things change that it's free cash that changes, but it could be any combination. Well, not any, we have a limit in free cash of what we're able to use, but we could be, there be a different combination of ARPA and free cash being used to balance it, depending on what we wanted more left over of. And last year we didn't make that change until until fall town meeting. Didn't we just, I think we just put it in as free cash and other or whatever when we went to annual town meeting, and we fixed it, made it more precise when we went to the town meeting in the fall.
Right.
I have a question about the ARPA. So the ARPA, is that's all that we have for
No.
ARPA?
No. Now, we get,
Tell them about the tranche.
yeah, that comes in 2 tranches. We got our first tranche, which is half of it last year, and they gave us the second tranche this, I don't know whether it's May or June, but we don't have it yet. It was something over 1.5 million. I think it was 1.5, but so I always just think of it as 1.5, but it's actually a little more than that. So, and they give us 750,000 a year. And we are allowed, because of the size of our town, we are allowed to use as much as we want in replacement revenue. So we could use it all here, but then we would lose a lot of flexibility in addressing some of our emergency or our infrastructure issues. Things that have been happening in DPW, we're kind of hoping that we can use ARPA funds for.
Yeah, I mean, they're gonna come up with some things that you're gonna need the money for, so it's gonna get used some other way. Otherwise we could do all ARPA here, and then we'd have a lot more in free cash, which we'd have to come back for. It doesn't really matter.
In the end, it doesn't.
No.
If we don't use, it's not like if we don't use ARPA money, is there a chance of losing it? If you don't use it, you lose it?
Ultimately, but not this year.
Ultimately. We will use it. We will use it. I will tell you, we have 2 critical culvert issues right now that we're working on as an emergency, that I'll be going to the select board to discuss, getting some authorization to use ARPA funds for these. I have 2 that are in really bad shape, and 2 of many.
So why? I'm just curious, just because you don't want to ever take the risk of if you don't use it, you lose it. Why would we not use it all? And maybe I missed that. Use it all and then keep all the free cash. And then because you can use the free cash anytime you can, and you won't lose the free cash, right?
And we did come to that, because at some point early in the process, when we were meeting, Dan, Susan, Carolyn, and I, we kind of arrived at that too and said, well, let's use it all then if we can, because then we don't have to meet any more of their requirements. We're all set and we're off the hook, and we have relieved that and left it for free cash. But it's a timing thing. It's how you use it. So if we have more in free cash, we then would be able to apply it to capital and these other projects that are coming up. The difference is we can spend ARPA without going to town meeting. And that's what Carolyn was mentioning. Would you say culverts? Is it the head walls? Something? We have issues that we've had a number of issues coming up.
Just this week.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Take it away, Carolyn.
2 culverts that have failed.
Okay.
And so I can spend that, right? We can access the ARPA money right away, versus you can't do that with free cash.
So we're trying to strike a balance then.
And any monies we have for ARPA that is under $10 million, which of course we didn't get, Northampton got a ton.
We're under 10.
Under 10, is considered all revenue replacement.
If we want, we have to make the election, yeah,
Right.
this month.
So you have a pocket full of money and it's just, you're leaving it there so that way you don't have to go through town meeting to use money. So why do we need to have, at this point, can we just get rid of all of the finance reserve? I mean, it looks like you don't need it because you have a pocket full of money where you don't need to go to the town meeting.
We don't have a lot of it. After using this for, to help balance last year's budget and this year's budget, it does not leave us a lot of money.
How much does it leave it?
Well, this year we have about 200,000 left over from our first payment, and we have not received the second payment yet.
Okay, so after we receive the second payment and we use 400,000, how much are we gonna have?
Have we
300?
we had other
Your
spendings?
crystal ball, Linda.
Yeah, I don't know. By the time the culverts,
Yeah. We
I
haven't
think we're
discussed.
gonna
this.
spend, I think we're gonna be spending this year. So looking into next year, if we say 400 of the approximately 750, we'll have about 350,000 left over.
And there is money designated for the trailers, hoping those will happen soon. But there was money that the select board authorized to help pay for the.
Yes, that's right. I knew there
renovate
was
the
something.
trailers.
Yeah.
For the DPW. So it sounds like there's a lot left, but there really isn't. And we do have some critical infrastructure issues that I would love to be able to have that to access. It is one of the things that ARPA is that is focused on in looking at future possible ARPA funds, or actually calling it an infrastructure bill. But I can tell you from experience, municipalities, Western Mass, Hampshire County, Berkshires does not get what Boston gets. And I just would never want to say, well, that next funding source, if it comes through, we'll get that money. I have to see it to believe it.
So Amy, what are you getting at? And you're trying, you want to see if we can build up free cash more front instead of using ARPA?
No, I'm just trying to understand what you're doing with the funding and where the pockets of money are, and where you have, we've never used, ARPA's new, right? So I'm
Right.
trying to get a grasp on this money,
Yeah.
and we've been, because in our finance reserves was always that backup. That's what we had, so that you didn't have to go through town meeting, because you had to have in case. And so it used to be like 50,000. We've increased it to 100,000.
Right. Oh, I see what you're doing.
Yeah, so can I just touch on that with the reserve? So this year, that budget was put together before the Ukraine and Russia, and before we were really seeing a huge impact on the price of gas and fuel. We could change that now, yes, but I would really like to keep the budgets at what they are. We did increase them a little bit under those line items, but that, when I'm thinking about reserve for next year, there's some unknowns that we can't predict based on everything that's impacting, everything from inflation to supply chain, all of that. I mean, things right now are so much more expensive, but it's just that next year's just so unpredictable. I would recommend not to change that reserve fund transfer. I'm sorry, that reserve fund balance for some of these unknowns. I didn't want to add more to the budget because it's kind of a guessing game what's going to happen with those line items. So that I would recommend that you wouldn't touch the reserve fund.
So this year, there actually is, oh, it's not showing here yet. 35,000 has been spent out of here. You actually only have, you have 65,000 left this year. And
We probably will be asking for another one.
right, yes, and we've got some in the hopper that will be coming your way. And yeah, I mean, we don't know. I mean, we never know with that fund. One year, when I was on, they had the leak over at, was Hooker School, when we had Hooker School. And was a big leak and it cost over $75,000, which can't, the only place to take it from was the reserve fund. It was unexpected. It was urgent and it had to be done.
Well, that's what we always had, was just the reserve fund was what we had. And now I'm just trying to get a grasp on this ARPA, because now it's a special pocket of money that you could use for different things like that, that we've never had before, never experienced before. So I'm
Right.
trying to understand it.
Except, Amy, you have to remember that the hotels and meals tax all was substantially reduced. So the ARPA is a replacement fund for that.
Yeah.
So, you know, honestly, I personally, from everything I've read, think we are heading into another recession, and that just doesn't make anything better. So.
I agree.
If you don't do it, you're helping our FY24 free cash situation now. So if you don't use your reserve fund. So it's a really nice place to just hold money too, even if we don't use it.
Yeah, and it all goes back to the same place. I mean, it doesn't get lost. So that's why I was asking about the ARPA. If you don't use it, you lose it. Sometimes those are some of those funds I've heard of, you know.
All right.
That's
What do you
why-
say we do? Why don't we vote
Okay.
this in? Do we need to vote each section, or can we just vote this as one whole fell swoop?
I don't know.
Anybody?
So you made the adjustments there.
Right, let's see if they came through on your sheet. Just want to check that. What did we change? What's at the end? Sorry.
OPEB,
There we are. OPEB came down. Okay, so there's your budget. We only made those two changes in it. Oh, and by the way, let's not forget enterprise funds too. So if you want to, you could certainly vote the budget in its entirety.
Oh, we
make
could
a-
do, go ahead.
I'll make a motion that we vote the budget as with the adjustment we just made.
May I clarify that to general fund budget?
General fund budget, yes.
I'll second.
that.
Any discussion?
Now, I don't know how it's gonna look. So my discussion is, and I don't know how to put it in there. I do want to note, I mean, that I just want to say that those are the two items that I vote for everything, yes, except for two items that I want to I just putting it out there that at this point I don't agree with is adding people. So I don't know how to put it out there or how to list it like that, but I mean, everything else is fine. I just, as far as adding, so I guess the two things that if I had, and this is just my thoughts of the new people, it's 80,000 for police, 80,000 for ambulance are the two, in my opinion, that that I just wanted noted that I would have moved 160 back into the free cash and then pushed it off just until the fall. So I don't know if we go to vote on this and then I just say no. I don't really want to say no because I agree with most of it. I don't know what to. Or maybe I can just put that, you know how we did it the one other time? We just put a note on just the side. Remember, Linda, when we did it for
Yeah. Well, just say with exception of police and ambulance budgets.
yeah. I mean, that's what we did one time with the.
Okay. Suppose it was like when you're all here, 500 in support of the budget, with exception that of it being 410
Good,
in
yeah,
favor.
you could.
Yeah. That'd be okay?
Does
Thank
that
you.
cover it?
with respect to those two budgets. It's 410. That sound? I don't know why that wouldn't take care of it. If anyone has concerns, you can vote it again.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll probably ask me and make me get up and explain it. But I just have to I mean, it was just something that I felt, so I just felt like I should.
Okay.
All righty.
Okay.
Enterprise? Or did you vote? You voted, right? Yes. Did you?
Yeah, Linda,
General fund. I thought we did general fund. Did we do? I don't think we did enterprise.
No, here we go. So that's the sewer, water, and cable. We've spent a long time on that at select board last week on sewer and water issues. There will probably be there may be, under discussion is an increase in rates, and they decided to keep the infrastructure fee and designate specifically that the infrastructure fee collected for water goes to water debt and interest, and the infrastructure fee allocated from water users who are not also sewer users, that it go directly to water infrastructure, which debt and interest pays the infrastructure. So that's how it's going to be done there. And then they will put off discussion of increases in those rates until later in the spring. Any questions about those budgets or concerns?
I don't, I think we have to keep an eye on it because we're spending a lot we're borrowing a lot. So that
Yep.
Interest keeps going up and up and up on those sewer and water reserves. So it makes it really easy when we do capital. Oh, we'll just pay it out of water, pay it out of sewer. That
Yep.
seems it always passes through town meeting really easy too. But
Yep.
down the road, it's going to catch up to us. So we got to keep an eye on it.
Right, and that's true. And one thing we really will probably have to do, as there are more projects and coming along for sewer and water, we will have to do a long-term bond and cover it that way. But we're not there yet. But you're
And
right.
reevaluate the rates.
Yes, that too.
All right. Someone want to make a motion for these enterprise funds?
make a motion to approve the enterprise funds.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right.
Is that it?
Do we have to do anything for capital, or is that, we don't touch that?
That's when we go over the warrant. They should be in the warrant.
Gotcha.
Yes.
Okay.
They're being added today, or they were being, maybe they're in already. Do you have a meeting set up for that? Or did you want to?
I think, didn't you guys set aside Tuesday?
Well, we talked about it, but did you, I asked you last night about the warrant, but I looked and looked and looked, and I haven't seen the warrant yet. I can't find it. Does anybody else have
Did
the
anybody
copy?
else, because Jennifer was gonna send, okay, all right.
No.
We'll make sure. Okay, I was gonna ask a question. Would you consider we would have to post tomorrow to do it with the select board, to review the warrant together on Wednesday?
I don't
I'm
want to
available.
go with the select board.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if
Nick,
anybody
what-
else does, but it makes it, I don't mind going to the select board meetings, listening to what you have
Okay.
to say. But trying to have discussion in the middle of a select board meeting or having to go through all the select board agenda is a little bit much for us, in my opinion. I don't know about if anybody else wants to chime in.
Those
I
are
agree.
good points.
With all respect, due respect to the select board. Yeah, I'd rather have our own meeting and then either send a message that we've done it or have us all go in front just to say it's done, if that needs to be done.
Well, I already have the
I-
19th on my calendar.
As do I. I had that, we put it down for, as a overflow if we needed it, so it's already on my calendar. But I would like to see the warrant, to have it over the weekend to read.
I'll do it before I leave tonight. We'll make
Thank
sure you get it.
Now, I know, Alexi, you're not going to be able to be there on the 19th. That's our opening class. That's our opening night for our class. So if everyone else will be there, we'll still have a quorum.
Problem you're gonna have is it's too late to post a meeting for the 19th.
I think Jennifer did a bunch of them all at once.
Let's see.
Yeah, let's see.
Planning board at 6:30. It's the 19th.
So it's already too late?
It has to be 48 hours, not counting Saturday, Sunday, or this week, Monday.
Oh.
So Thursday at 7, the earliest you could meet. If it
No,
was
we
posted.
can post. Oh, no, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, you're thinking Wednesday for
Yeah,
select
I
board.
am.
Well, we can meet at the same time as the or before the select board meeting, yeah, on Wednesday.
Yeah, you could post tomorrow for Wednesday.
It won't give us enough time. I mean, we haven't even for us to try to do it before the select board meeting. It would
No, it
only,
would be a day later. It would be a day late than Tuesday. So if you met, are you saying at the same time, Dan?
You could meet at the same time, or you could even meet
Sure.
Thursday. Because it's your recommendations that you would be posting. Select board would post the warrant articles as they exist. So you could actually meet on Thursday, the 21st.
I'm okay with that.
Alexi, what about you?
On which date? The 21st?
The 21st, that's Thursday. Are you teaching that night?
I am. I'm teaching. I'm
What-
teaching on Tuesdays and Thursdays starting next week.
Okay, so, excuse me, what about just doing it on Wednesday, and we could have I can do 5, but we just do it on our own, and if we happen to get it done before 7 or 7:30, then we can send message over what we've done, and if we don't, then it's no different than us having it on Thursday.
I think that sounds good.
Select board at 6 o'clock, Carolyn?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
That's tough. I don't know if I'll be too much on all that. It's just, yeah, only because I need that. We don't close until after 5.
So 5:30 work then?
5:30 works, but there's that's the pressure on trying to do it within 30 minutes. That gives us.
No, we're not. We're
No,
not
you
gonna
don't-
try then. We'll just have our meeting, but that way all our members can be there.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
It'd just be no different. We're gonna have our own meeting on our own Teams or Zoom here. And the only difference is that I don't know if Carolyn is gonna be able to be there or will we have anybody who can be there just to explain things? if
Yeah,
we have
we'll
questions?
have to divide and conquer.
Okay,
I can be there.
Tricky.
well,
gonna be a
if
little
there's-
tricky.
if one of you is the good cop, bad cop, we'll take the good cop. You guys can decide though.
You don't get to pick. We send
Oh, boy. We'll talk Thursday, I guess, huh? Does that work? Amy, you comfortable with that?
As long as it's after 5:30, I don't want
Yeah,
it 5 o'clock.
5:30 is fine. Okay,
So that's up to, I think we do need someone, either Linda or Carolyn or even Sue, or someone that needs to
Yeah.
explain what they are, because we haven't even seen, gone over them. So
right.
we'll probably have a lot of questions.
I think so.
I mean, usually we see these a bunch of times, so we've answered all the questions because it's been a whole bunch of times. So we haven't seen it yet. So, and we're going to be voting on it, so we will definitely have questions.
Well, let's
Happy to
put
be
it-
there. Dan would be a good resource too. Sorry, Dan.
Well, I mean, Amy.
Yep.
we usually saw this before, we haven't. I would say let's plan on the 20th. If we find that we don't feel comfortable voting at that point, then we'll schedule another meeting for the 27th. Or Monday night, the 25th, to vote on it. We'll just have to do that,
Okay,
okay?
So-
Is everybody else on with
I'm-
that?
Well,
I
what if,
have,
is that
are
getting
you,
tight? Sorry.
I have to post the warrant on the 25th.
Oh,
You could post a warrant without finance recommendations on it. It only has to have the articles.
But you guys threw,
They feel,
right, so the articles,
And you could add them in for the warrants handed out at town meeting.
Absolutely.
There you go. So that solves that. Okay, then we're not rushed if we need more time.
so I actually don't know what you ended up deciding. What's all set?
We're deciding to do a 5:30 meeting on the 20th.
Okay, and then, right,
Okay, and
Yeah.
then we are going to, if we need to, at that night, if we don't feel comfortable voting,
okay,
we have questions about this, then we will put them forward and we will have another meeting on the 27th.
got it.
And at that point, if,
That's a Wednesday. Is that what you mean?
yes, also a Wednesday, so our team
Yeah.
can be there.
All right, got it.
So if you want to post both meetings now, and then you can cancel one.
that's a good
Just to
idea.
make sure we don't miss it, that would be fine. And hopefully on the 20th, we have enough time to read through it because we'll receive it later tonight. Is what I was told, or tomorrow.
you're gonna get it right now, as soon as we
Okay.
end.
sounds good.
Okay, so that's that motion. Do we need a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion that we adjourn.
Beat me to it again. All right, I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, everybody have a nice night. Thank you, town administrators and other budget people there. Dan, Susan, did I leave anybody out?
Linda?
Linda,
Linda.
sorry.